Yes, you read that correctly. I'm going to squish a whole neighborhood into my friend's house in Final Fantasy XIV, but not just any run-of-the-mill pretty neighborhood you'd see on Instagram. No. We don't do that here. Instead, they wanted a run-down Lominsan street with a couple of holes in the walls, and not only that, but if I can keep access to the basement so I can potentially stuff a Solution 9 inspired Fight Club in it, that would be ideal. Now, if you've watched any of my videos before, then you know I'm up for the challenge, but there is an emphasis on this being a challenge this time. Come on, let me show you what I mean. So medium houses in Final Fantasy XIV have a 300 item slot limit, which sounds like a lot, but if you're new here or to the game, then it's important to emphasize that every item placed takes up an item slot. This includes things like walls and lofts, so for anything architecturally intensive, you're forced to choose between structure and thematic details. Outdoor dioramas in particular are notorious for this, because they require the most item slots to pull off than any other design type. So the vast majority of city builds tend to cluster all of their item slots on one floor of the house. So if I want to build a detailed street, keep access to the basement, and decorate the basement with the same level of detail as the ground floor, I'm gonna have to cut my budget down to almost half. To pull that off, I'm going to have to approach this project like I would a book nook kit. Keep things narrow and play with perspective. So, with that in mind and my friend's permission already secured, I'm going to cut off the stairs to the second floor and create this simple zigzag walkway to the workshop door. This is going to help make the space feel deeper than it actually is. I'm also going to use the minimalist housing skins so that I can have more room on the east side of the floor. I want this level to still be usable, right? So I want to make a studio apartment for my friend's character, and I want it to look out on the rest of the street. So that apartment is going to go right there. And that sounds like the best place to start to me, so let's go. What you're seeing me do here is I'm trying to nail the layout for the studio apartment because I want it raised up. With the apartment off the ground, it'll have a more dynamic view of the street below, but this process requires glitching, and glitching is pain. So I'm following the old adage of measure twice, cut once here. Of course, that didn't really work, and I had to refloat some things anyway, but I tried to save myself some effort, and that's what matters, right? Oh, that's so tiny! Of course, every apartment needs a floor, and for this project I'm using imitation wooden skylights because they're big, and more importantly, they have built-in camera collision. What that means is when you walk around, your camera won't zoom through the floor, making for a more comfortable experience. With that, the floor is in and the structure is done. It's already starting to look so good. I'm excited. Now I just need to clean up the outside and add some details. It's done, it's done, it's done, it's done. Those flippin' window blinds caused me so many problems, but it was worth it for the look. I can't wait for the finished build to show off this part, so come take a walk with me. I need the break anyway. We got a nice smooth glide up the stairs, and there's so much space inside. Even with a raised floor, it's still comfortable for tall characters to use, and y'all, that view out the window was exactly what I wanted. Now there's still room to add more details to the apartment, but I don't want to get carried away quite yet. I want to leave some room for my friend to add their own touches, and I still need to be careful with my item slots. So let's get back out there and finish the rest of the street. At this point, the right half of the street was finished, which meant it was time to finally enclose the basement stairs and get working on the left side. Thankfully, this was one of the easiest parts of the build. I wanted the basement stairs to look like a building entrance itself, so that it was a more convincing transitional area. Also, I apologize for the camera here. I was starting to enter the point of the build where getting a proper viewing angle was getting really difficult because of how tightly squished everything was. So I did my best with the editing, but I can only do so much. When you're building, you get into nooks and crannies and your camera isn't always cooperative. Plenty of room. Okay, it don't look entirely right from this spot, but that's fixable. I can fix that. Once the buildings were in place, it was time to put in the sky, and that was a little bit intimidating. I wanted this to be a low light build because I wanted all of the cool glowing objects that are scattered throughout the street. I wanted those to really stand out. But the stark white ceiling and the minimalist skin was harshing the vibe, which put a pin in that because that will rear its head again later. Not so dramatic foreshadowing. But for now, I really wanted to use the Phasmoscapes for this purpose because they provide nice ambient lighting in our wall-mounted items. So technically, they're easier to place than if I were to float something up instead. Looking back, I probably should have placed them before decorating the street as much as I did, but I would have had to wait until the walls were up anyway so that I could properly seal everything in. Yet, of course, I still had to pull everything closer together anyway because I misjudged. Me, misjudge my measurements. Never. Couldn't be me. That being said, it was so worth it though. I know the sky looks really heckin' wonky right now, but once everything is dyed and the lighting is dimmed, it's going to look incredible, I promise. Truthfully, I already think it looks incredible as is. I'm loving the construction, and the view from the window keeps getting better with each stage. And best of all, the street was finished with only 164 items. Which means it's finally time for the basement. So, unfortunately, my item slot victory was a little short-lived, as a new challenger stared me down from around the corner as I descended the stairs. Remember when I said I needed to be mindful of items poking into the basement? Well, that's rearing its ugly head now, because apparently I can't follow my own advice. Remember that I used imitation wind skylights for the floor of the studio apartment on the first floor. I chose them because they're massive and take up a lot of space for very few item slots on top of their camera collision. Unfortunately, they're so massive, they cut into half of the basement, which doesn't leave a whole lot of room for the actual fight club, especially since my friend and I want to use the in-game fighting ring as the centerpiece and to further save item slots. But after a quick talk, we both agreed this might actually be a blessing in disguise, because we wanted this place to feel like a dive bar, a hole in the wall, as if an Alexandrian somehow through sheer effort and a shoestring budget managed to bring a piece of Solution 9 to Lominsan. So it actually needs to be smaller than I was initially planning to communicate that vibe, which I cannot tell you how happy that made me, because I was not looking forward to figuring out a replacement floor for that dang apartment. I was too happy with how it came out. I didn't want to tear it down. That being said, as great as that is, now we have to adjust our planning a little bit. So with the far wall right up against the chandelier, which is about the halfway point of the basement, I'm gonna keep the ring in the middle of the available floor left over. To keep this wall from looking flat, I'm going to add a door with a shower room, to tell a story. Give the stinky fighters a place to freshen up, but more importantly, give the illusion of depth. We're squishing the basement floor to half its size, so adding that little speck of depth is gonna go a long way. It may not seem like it on paper, but it will in the finished product. Then on the north wall, as you come down the stairs, you're going to see this really cool bar that's going to have neon lights and monitors all along the walls to add some cool glowing effects, and it's going to be amazing. I'm excited for how that's going to look. I'm trying not to clap. I'm clapping right now, even though you can't see it with my VTuber model. I'm trying not to do it very loud because I don't want my microphone to pick it up. But anyway, it's going to look great, and the bar is the last complicated piece of the build. So once that's done, it's straight shot to the finish line. Now, some of you might have already figured this out, but the reason I'm floating a flooring mat is because we're going to dye that a neon color to make it pop and make it look like a neon light circuit, and that's going to look cool. I know there's horizontal lights in the game now, but our retainers are assholes and haven't brought home a single one, and I'm not about to pay $3 million plus per light. So this is a cheap, accessible alternative because the flooring mat can be bought from your apartment's NPC vendor. I never want to build that bar counter again. So moving on, I wanted a mix of what could pass for electrope and more of the steampunk vibe Eorzea uses more of for the walls, which is why you see the factory stuff in the Enigma partition. But for the electrope walls, I needed them nice and smooth, so I decided to use stage panels and push them as close to the natural walls that I possibly could. And they're going to be dyed jet black later, which neither I or my friend paid out of pocket for any of those because holy moly, that would have been expensive. Anyway, one of the many things I love about the minimalist housing skin is it's so much easier to pull tricks off like this and make all the walls match because you can get under the stairs so easily with it. Once the stage panels are in place, I just shoved jail partitions into them, and like the flooring mat earlier, they're going to be dyed bright neon colors to look like lighting and help sell the effect. That said, I didn't want to leave the space under the stairs empty, so that's going to become some VIP seating. As I was placing the final items, my friend and I started dyeing furniture, and at this point, I would typically be showing you the final build. However, we had a little over 20 item slots left. 24, I think? I'll show it on the screen. Anyway, we had slots left. I actually pulled off this project with items to spare, which is rare for me. I pat past me on the back for that one. Good job. But there was an eyesore. Remember the stark white minimalist ceiling? It's back. That bloody awful stark white ceiling was killing the vibe and throwing off the lighting that we had so carefully placed around the basement. So my friend asked if it would be possible to make a fake ceiling with what we had left. And naturally, I said yeah, why wouldn't it be? We tried wooden lofts at first because, like the Phasmoscapes on the first floor, they're wall mounted and easier to place. But as we were putting them up, we couldn't help but wonder if we could make cleaner lines and save item slots if we used troop stages instead. Which meant we had to put everything we just placed back into storage so that I could float troop stages. I don't blame my friend at all. It was the right call. It looks so much better. But that just goes to show that you can do all the planning in the world. You can have backup plans. You can have plan Zs for your backup plans. But sometimes, mid-build, or even towards the end of the build, you have to tear everything down and try again to get the results you want. But y'all, it was so worth it. It was undeniably worth it. This took a couple months to put together from preparation to execution, but this became my absolute favorite build to date. And I think you'll see why when you see these results. Isn't it gorgeous? I'm so happy with how the design came together in the end, and my friend was right. Troop stages were so much better for the basement than a bunch of different wooden lofts, and the extra items we saved from making that decision went into clutter that really livened the space up. On top of that, the lighting and dye colors were the finishing touch that transformed the space, which big shout out to my friend who not only chose the majority of the dye colors to really sell the vibe, but thank you for letting me build such an out-of-the-box concept in the first place. And to all of you, thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you enjoyed the building process as much as I did, and that you feel empowered to try an unconventional design like this for yourself. If you only have an apartment or a small house, then no need to worry. I have a couple builds of those sizes that are also cool set pieces and a little non-traditional, and I'll link them in the description below. And if you play 14 yourself and want to visit this house, I'll have a pinned comment with the address so you can do that. Otherwise, until next time, see you then!